Okay, let's talk golf now in the Australian Open, which tees off tomorrow at the Lakes in Sydney. Now, Bruce Young has been working and covering golf for more years than he'd probably care to remember. But, Bruce, just how good a field is this?
Well, in my time covering golf, it's certainly the best Australian Open field. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Back in the 70s and the days of the Packers, when we'd get Jack Nicklaus out here and a few of the leading Americans, they were strong fields. But when we've got 7 of the top 20 from the world ranking, I think we've got 14 from the President's Cup, 2 teams playing this week. This is an incredibly strong field, not only at the pointy end, but across the field as well. It's very, very deep in terms of its strength. Incredible
numbers, but of course the lead-up has been dominated, hasn't it, by one thing, caddy spat, as they're calling it, Tiger Woods and Steve Williams. We don't want to talk about it too much. It's probably been said and done now, but you're very close to what's been going on. What's your view on it now, and has it been put to bed?
I think it's died a natural death, which it should have. I don't think it should have had any life anyway. It had more legs than it deserved to, really. It was a private conversation. OK, Steve's acknowledged he said the wrong thing, but he's a guy that really has done his bit for charity. His own foundation in New Zealand has given more than $1 million to an oncology unit over there, which is for underprivileged people of many nationalities. So for anybody to suggest that he's racist in any way, shape or form is completely off the mark. I think it's been diffused beautifully this week by all 3 parties, really, indirectly by Adam Scott, but more especially by Tiger Woods and Steve Williams. I think they've done a great job, and now we can really, Jim, focus on the job at hand, and that's this outstanding golf tournament that we're left with.
Absolutely. Well, Williams now carries the bag, of course, for Australian Adam Scott. He was the world number 8 earlier today on that spat and his chances.
He's a part of my team, and, you know, it was all unfortunate, and I felt that if I spoke up, you know, I could say my piece and I wouldn't need to deal with it anymore. I mean, I think it's a very unfortunate circumstance. We don't need that in the game, and I wanted to put an end to it, and I feel like I have. I'm sitting at number 8, and, you know, with consistent play over the next year, I believe number 1 is certainly attainable.
Now, Bruce, you've been speaking to Scotty today, as a lot of the players as well. He's sounding like a guy very ready to assume the mantle.
Well, I think the planets were already aligning for Adam Scott this year, even prior to Steve Williams coming on board. Steve Williams has no doubt made a difference, but when you consider that he'd changed coaches a while ago, he made the move to the long putter, then he had runner-up finish at the Masters. I think all those things really added to the confidence that was building momentum. And then when Steve Williams almost gave him an acknowledgement by offering to caddy for him. I know it was an interim measure initially, but it became a permanent thing. I think that probably just gave him another dimension as well. If you like, it probably added a bit of mongrel to Adam Scott.
I was going to ask that, Bruce, because I think a lot of people, you wonder, as a golfer, it's obviously on their shoulders, but I'm just interested in what impact a caddy can actually have on somebody in a tournament. I mean, most people think they carry the bag around, but Williams has proven he's been a big part of Tiger Woods' success.
Well, he's very experienced in the heat of the moment. You don't win more than 100 titles as a caddy and 13 majors with Tiger Woods without being incredibly experienced and capable of handling the heat. And we've already seen it in a couple of situations. He wasn't with him at the Masters, but subsequent to that, he's had a couple of good finishes and the win at the World Golf Championship. I think he's just added that greater sense of self-belief for Adam Scott, and you can almost see it coming through in press conferences like we saw today, and even on the golf course. Just the things that he's saying, the things that he's doing, the body language almost, to my way of thinking, suggests that being the world number 1 is now not beyond him. We've always been a bit concerned about his performances in majors, but I think we need to also remember that this is a guy that's won Tour Championships, Players Championships, multiple PGA Tour wins, European Tour events, an Australian Open. He's a very, very successful player, but I think we've all been hoping since he came on the scene that he might be able to be our next major winner. You know, obviously Ogilvy's won one. It hasn't worked out that way, but I think it's not too far away before we see him doing that.
Well, what about Jason Day? Because he's our next great hope, isn't he? And many are saying a better chance, perhaps, than Scott this weekend, even though he hasn't played for so long in Australia.
Well, I've always said that I think potentially, and I've known Jason for many years, I saw him growing up in Queensland, I've always believed that he's potentially could be our best ever player, and that's putting him ahead of the likes of Norman.
That's a huge call.
Well, it is a huge call, but you've only got to see at the age of 23 what he's achieved already. He was the youngest player ever to win a PGA or a nationwide tour event when he won it 3 or 4 years ago. On debut at the Masters this year, he finished runner-up. On debut at the US Open, he finished runner-up. You don't do that without having an incredible game physically, but also the incredible mental fortitude to handle the situation. I think he's an incredibly exciting talent.
As you said, you've seen him come through the ranks from junior to now got professional on the major circuit in the world, in America. He seems to have matured beautifully. Even though he's only 23, he just seems to have really matured those last few years playing over there.
He's got a tremendous support team around him. Colin Swatton, his caddy come coach. He's been married now 18 months, 2 years or so. His wife Ali has been a great influence on Jason as well. He's 23, but he really conducts himself like a guy in his late 20s, early 30s. He's the complete package, in my opinion.
OK, just quickly, we've got to talk Tiger Woods because, remarkably, he's favourite with some bookmakers, if not second favourite. Is he a chance? And just tell us also about the conditions at the Lakes. Will they suit a lot of these foreign players?
Well, is he a chance? He's a bit like a box of chocolates at the moment, isn't he, really? You just never quite know what you're going to get. But true, seriously, I think... You know, he hasn't played for quite some time, apart from the Fries.com tournament that he played. Other than that, it was the PGA Championship. But he's played a lot of practice rounds, social rounds, but it's a lot different putting a pencil in your hand when you have to mark the card. I guess we're going to need to wait and see what he does. He's one of the joint favourites, or close to being the favourite for the tournament, which might be a bit unrealistic given the circumstances. But he is Tiger Woods, 14 majors, more than 70 PGA Tour titles. He's got to be some sort of a factor, but I think there are a lot of other chances that could potentially take it to him.
Very quickly, because I want Tomo just to give us a quick update on the market. Who is your winner?
Well, you throw a blanket across the likes of Scott Day, Matt Kuchar, Nick Watney. You can just go on naming the great names, but quite frankly, I've got a bit of a sneaking suspicion for Nick Ahern, who played here for the first time last year, finished 23rd after a long break with injury, and he's had a couple of top 10s on the PGA Tour recently. I think if the going gets tough out there, which it could if the wind gets up, Nick Ahern is that grinding type of player that might just be a bit of a smoky this week.